What is up, guys? Welcome to the very first episode of the Checkerboard Pirates podcast. Now, if you guys are familiar with the regular Checkerboard podcast, we pretty much just talk about whatever on there. But we want to make a specific podcast for like One Piece because, I mean, let's be honest, guys. There's so much One Piece to cover that
No,
like
there's not.
you're right. There's not too much.
Only 1,000 chapters. Come
Only
on,
a
guys, pick
thousand.
it up.
But yeah, so we dedicated a whole podcast to this one, and this is going to be a Liam channel exclusive. So
Hey.
if you guys are on Twitch, this will not be on my channel afterwards. It will be on Liam's, and I'll probably put his channel in the chat at some point. But yeah, guys,
I'm already on it.
You got it.
Yep. Hopefully your bot will actually let me paste the clip this time. But yeah, if you guys aren't aware, obviously I am here, but we also have the elusive, the sensual, the amazing Eco Live. Say hey to everybody.
Yo, what is up?
Yeah, the little goober. Fucking hate this guy. I can't believe he's here. But anyway, what were you saying, Sir Default?
So this podcast is gonna be pretty much us going through every single arc, talking about it. Today we're going through the whole East Blue saga, or we're gonna try to at least, and we're pretty much just gonna go through every arc, talk about it, talk about the big parts, and then we're gonna give our thoughts. And like I said, hopefully we should get through all of East Blue. Each of us are covering 2 arcs for this, and maybe we might cover a little bit of the smaller parts like Buggy's thing, but we'll have to see. But anyway, I'm gonna let Liam take over here because
Yes, sir.
he's starting us off.
All right, boys. First of all, I want to make sure that this is very clear to everyone, not only in Twitch, but in the Discord. If you have not seen One Piece, after watching us or listening to us talk for all this time, please, I seriously encourage you to go out there and watch it. I'm not going to say the same bullshit that everyone else says, like, it's worth the enjoyment. But, like, if you want a good series that is reliable, like think about it like this. Think about your favorite TV show of all time. If you had 1,000 episodes of it, you would probably be very happy about that. And that's how I feel with One Piece. So you may as well give it a shot. And like, think about it. Having 1,000 episodes of something that you enjoy is pretty freaking awesome. It's a lot of content to consume, and it's all good. And so I would seriously recommend that you support the official releases of all of this. We are not trying to make something that is a supplement to watching One Piece. If your goal here is to watch this and get something out of this to avoid getting in the actual content, please support Oda. He is a master of his craft, and he deserves all the support he gets. He is truly a genius when it comes to writing manga. So whether reading or watching is your go-to, I would say, please genuinely support this man. He is the greatest, one of the greatest, at least. So, but what better place to start in a story than with the beginning? And I don't want to get too much into the details of the name behind Romance Dawn, but that has always been a very key part of One Piece within itself. Romance Dawn was actually supposed to be the original name of like a mini, kind of portion, like side story of One Piece. There's a lot of really interesting history to that, and for that, I would go check out on YouTube. His name is Totally Not Mark. I'm not going to be getting too much into that. My concern is more with Oda's relationship and character building that happens in this arc, and kind of setting up his world. I think that's the part that means the most to me here. But connecting One Piece to Oda, if you want to hear about that, I would go to Totally Not Mark's channel. It's spelled exactly the way you'd think it would if you want to hear a breakdown of the meaning Romance Dawn and why Oda loves it so much. So, now actually getting into this story, how do you begin a behemoth of a story like One Piece? It would be kind of hard to come up with a good introduction when it comes to something that has as much longevity. Even though Oda never really necessarily planned for Oda to last as long as it has been, having a good introduction is kind of everything here. And at least when it comes to both anime and manga for One Piece, I don't know if there's a better introduction, to be honest. So let's talk Romance Dawn. It does not matter whether you start with the anime or with the manga. At the beginning of it, you're going to start with the execution of Gold D. Roger. And from a writing perspective, it is very good to do what is called dangling a carrot in your audience's face. Gold Roger sets up not only the entire purpose behind Luffy, but the purpose to the entire world of One Piece. We are introduced at the beginning of the story to the crux, the climax of the world of One Piece. This is where the entire series for this entire world, which we begin to learn about, this is where things start seriously kicking in the gear, right here. And I think it's a little interesting to start your story like that. Now we have this intrigue. Why is this man so important? I mean, just being called King of the Pirates, what does that even mean? What does that have anything to do with anything? Take, for an example, a story like Naruto, where the beginning moment, or the hierarchy, so to speak, the Hokage, we know what the Hokage is. We know that a Hokage is the person who's kind of just, president ninja. But what does it mean to be King of the Pirates? What exactly is that role within itself? And so not only is that kind of carrot dangled in our face, the understanding of what Roger's role meant, but what is it that he is hiding from the society itself? So from the get-go, you're already kind of shown like, okay, you're asking yourself questions. What are these things and what do they mean? And that's not even getting into the portion where Luffy is introduced to all this, but it kind of shows that there are plenty of people in this world who would chase and have a drive to pursue something like this just off of the mystery itself. And from that mystery, and from all those people, there are hundreds of people around the world who are pursuing after GODa, Roger's treasure, the One Piece, everything, just because of the mystery, the intrigue, the fact that there could be treasure. But there's one individual that it means something different to them. And that's who we're introduced to at the beginning of the story. Of course, who else but Monkey D. Luffy. Now, a very, very interesting fact for everybody who has watched the anime and not read the manga at all. But have you ever noticed that Luffy has a scar underneath his left eye? And you, are never shown why that is? Well, that's because you probably haven't read the manga. But Luffy's scar actually is one of the first things in the introduction to Monkey D. Luffy's character. So at the beginning of Romance Dawn and Luffy's origin story, which is the first thing we see after Roger's execution, by the way. It is not the Alvida part, which I'll get to later. It is this portion. And so we see Luffy standing, talking to Shanks and his crew, being like, oh, I am the toughest dude ever. Guys, you want to see how tough I am? And everyone's like, how tough are you, Luffy? I'm gonna stab myself in the eye. And so that's how he got his scar, guys. He wanted to impress Shanks, and so he stabbed himself in the eye. Very, very base young man. I'm guessing they didn't show that because of, child violence or maybe suicide. I don't know why the anime doesn't include that. But I know that the movie that came out a couple years later did. So there's that. I don't know why they didn't do it, but it's very funny. It's very funny, I think. It's a good introduction to this quaint little character. But the bigger portion to me, and why I love Luffy's introduction so much, is because I want to compare it a lot. I'm gonna throw in some other, big name shonen protagonists. You have characters like Gon, you have characters like Naruto, Ichigo. They all have these kind of, I don't want to say rudimentary, but these very, basic introductions to their character where it's kind of more a call to responsibility. And there is something kind of like that with Luffy, but it's not exactly how it works. So, the first thing to think of with all these characters is that all of them had, quote unquote, some sort of potential parental figure and had a different relationship to them. And I think that Luffy and Shanks' relationship is probably my absolute favorite relationship when it comes to either a young kid and an adult. And this is why I love it so much, because Shanks isn't a father to Luffy. He really isn't even an older brother or anything like that either to Luffy. There's a very weird relationship that I don't really know what word or label to put on it, but I just adore it. Where it's kind of like he is just like a captain, but he does care about him. There's something more than just the word of family. And I also think that is very important when it comes to the ties that Luffy has to his real family or not. And that's why I also think like later in the series, like you'll kind of see that like, you know, a lot of stories like Fairy Tail or Naruto will put like an emphasis on family, but when Luffy's crew is threatened, that's the same thing as his family being threatened because his crew is his family. And so I really like the way that Oda sets up this idea of Luffy not really understanding the concept of family because his crew is what that is to him. So the relationship to Luffy's quote unquote like father figure or mentor figure, even though it is in a way kind of like a family based relationship, he views it as like a crew, and that's what's most important to him. So even though like like, you know, later develop on, I'm not going to get too much into this, but you see the Straw Hat, you know, they always put this emphasis on the word crew, and I've seen people get upset and like kind of like ruffled about the fact like, oh, they should say family, it would hit harder. And I'm like, well, that's not the point, because that's not the emphasis, and that's not what's important to Luffy, because to Luffy, crew is more to him than family, because his family wasn't exactly like what was, you know, what was there for him at the beginning, which you kind of get to see at the beginning, because obviously it's not like you grew up seeing Luffy's like, you know, you didn't grow up seeing his dad, you didn't grow up seeing his grandfather, you didn't see him as a young age, you didn't see any of his siblings, you didn't see anything like that. All you saw was him and this pirate crew. He actually calls Shanks like captain and stuff like that all throughout. So, and he doesn't really even call him Shanks that much in the manga anyway. He just calls him captain. So I like that emphasis, and I like that that kind of sets up what the theming of One Piece is too. That word, that crew, captain, and the idea of being a pirate is what makes family to Luffy, and that he can have his own bonds with his crewmates that means just as much, if not more, to family. And I love Oda for setting up that theming, and just how just wonderfully done it is at the beginning. So obviously, going through the motions, you know, the rest of it follows up the same with the manga. Luffy, you know, is trying to prove himself to Shanks, gets annoyed, accidentally eats this silly little devil fruit known as the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or the Gum Gum fruit, depending on your which language you selected. And from here, we're introduced to a couple of mountain bandits who, you know, make fun of Shanks, like, oh, pirates are cringe little nene babies. You'd believe in a silly little fairy tale about some goofy mustache man talking treasure and stuff. And Shanks takes this not personally at all, despite being the one who has more of a reason to take this personally. And Luffy does take this personally, and Luffy does get offended, which, by the way, not going to say it now, but this is very insanely good juxtaposition and foreshadowing to a certain moment which takes place later in the series. And I would love to talk about how phenomenal this is and how awesome this scene is, but I can't talk about it until later when I go ham on Skypiea, or when we all go ham on Skypiea, because Skypiea is peak. But anyway, it's a wonderful scene that sets up multiple things and talks very heavily about Luffy's thought process, and again, how important a crew means to him, as opposed to, like, you know, it being a family, but how much this pirate crew means to him, and how much it means to have that respect placed on. And here we go with another thing that was cut off from the anime to manga, is we kind of see Luffy take a very, very serious beating to this dude. We see like the whole thing with him walking into the bar, and it's showing Luffy like going like, oh, I'm gonna mess you up, buddy, I'm gonna mess you up real good, and then he gets totally decked, which is also the first instance of Luffy losing his famous right tooth, like that right, or I'm sorry, his famous like left tooth. Like, for some reason, every time Luffy fights, it's always the same tooth that goes missing, and this is the first instance of it. However, when we see Luffy later, he has his tooth back, which is like also foreshadowing to something that I'm not going to say, which I'm going to talk about later when we get to it, except that's like, oh, that's, oh yeah, oh man, that's way down the line. But we see, you know, the guy, the mountain bandit, taking Luffy, he's going to kill him, and then Shanks is walking in and is like, hey, you're not going to nay on that, kid. And that's exactly what he says. Trust me, guys, it's in the manga. and they just kind of they just kind of beat his ass, you know, like they just kind of take out his entire like little what would you call a mountain bandit crew, uh, I don't know, weirdos. We're gonna call them weirdos. That's the new mountain bandit crew name. So they took out all the weirdos in like no time at all, and then the dude Usopp smoke grenades away, and we see him go away with Luffy. Sea King comes, eats the dude. Shanks takes his arm. You know, like this is the part of the story that everybody knows. And I'm not gonna get into too much on what the whole sacrificing his arm for the future generation, because I think that's probably the part of One Piece that people talk about the most. But I don't want to rehash anything that anyone said of too much importance. I think the bigger thing to me with this whole beginning section was just talking about the fact that I think that one of the biggest key themes of One Piece was seriously and majorly developed in the beginning of this, and a lot of people read past One Piece and completely look over it. Like, it is insane how much people, I think, look over this, and why, like, having a crew is so important to Luffy. So I think that's always been one of the biggest parts to me in reading through this. And with that, let's get into the actual beginning of the One Piece anime. So, we have this stinky little poopy little pink-haired butt face on the ship of a stinky little poopy little fat person who is also fat and stinky and poopy. And I'm going to be honest, I don't have a lot to say about Alvida. I think she's one of the most, like, whatever antagonist of all time. I think she was literally just there to have a very comedic moment to show how strong Luffy is. Which is fine. I mean, that works. I don't think Alvida needed to be anything more than she was. So, like, I'm just gonna kind of, like... I don't think anyone's gonna be upset if I just kind of, just brush over this little portion and get to the portion which I want to talk about, which is the introduction to the Marines, which is also why I haven't really said much about Kobe. But the juxtaposition between Kobe and Luffy, the introduction to the Marines, and the juxtaposition between Kobe and Captain Morgan the First, who I would consider to be, yes, and I mean this, good villain of One Piece. Not great, definitely not great, but a good villain in One Piece. So first off, throughout the Alvida portion of One Piece, there's this part of this that I really enjoy, and that's kind of seeing the difference between Kobe and Luffy. So Luffy, as we have known following him, at least if you've read the manga, you haven't followed Luffy for that much, which is also why I prefer the manga, but I'm not going to be that guy, who's like telling you like, oh, everybody who's only seen the anime is cringe, because there's somebody in here who's who's like that anyway. So we have a firm understanding of what Luffy's character is. We know that he is a no-nonsense, will do anything, will say what he is thinking at all times, and just kind of does whatever he can, whenever he can do it. Luffy is the literal definition of what it means to be free mentally, even if he lives in a world that is restricted from doing so. And Kobe is somebody who sees the world through kind of a pair of his own glasses, not to sound stupid or anything like that, but he views the world for what it literally is, and Luffy views it for what it could be. And we get these two different characters and these two dynamics where one person is constantly asking questions. One person is constantly saying, well, what about this? Have you considered that? And then there's Luffy, who's just, nope, I don't care. I'm just going to kind of do the best that I can. And I'm not going to lie, the shit talking that Luffy gives to Kobe is like, I don't think that there's very many animes that have gotten me to like literally laugh out loud in the first episode or two, because most of the time, like, I don't know what it is, and maybe somebody can back me up on this, but like episode 1 anime humor generally sucks. Like, I don't like if you guys want to say something about that, like if you guys have a default eco, if you guys have something to say about that you want to like prove me wrong on that, but episode 1 anime humor is dog water most of the time. Is that a true fact?
I don't think I've ever seen it done well outside of One Piece.
Default?
I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to think. I feel like there's some. I don't know what.
Well, at least in shonen.
Okay. Because Devil's a part-timer is very funny episode 1, but that's also the point of it. But like Luffy and Kobe's dynamic episode 1 is fucking great. It is so humorous.
I don't know. I was gonna say Hunter x Hunter, but I'm like trying to remember. I don't know. I feel like there was
much funny stuff in the first.
I just remember bro was like sitting there in the. I know this isn't the Hunter x Hunter podcast, but like bro was literally just like fishing and shit, and bro pulls out this huge ass fish, or they were like denying it. They're like, yeah, no, he's not gonna fish up shit, or I feel like that's what happened. And then he fishes out this like humongous fish, and he's like, all right, I'm ready to go. I don't know. I thought that was a pretty good one, but yeah.
Okay, I mean, I didn't really laugh at that, but that is valid. But I mean, just kind of consistently, like episode 1, One Piece, the back and forth between Luffy and Kobe was like consistently very, very, very humorous to me.
Yeah, fair enough.
And I don't think I've ever like laughed that much at an anime, and like especially like in episode 1 anyway. Like that consistently throughout. So, and it didn't really get stale. Like, you know, Oda wasn't really like, you know, making the same, like it was still kind of the same theme, general theme of jokes, but it was also just, it was very, very good, very humorous, both in manga and anime. Although I guess it wasn't really like first chapter if we're talking manga, but still, it very, very good stuff all throughout with Kobe and Luffy. Not as intense juxtaposition, like, which I would say the better juxtaposition is between Kobe and Captain Morgan, but I would say that a lot of the reason why those two are different is because of what Luffy is and what his impact was on Kobe. So, getting into the first portion of the Marines. So, I think that introducing Kobe before introducing the aspect of the Marines was a very, very smart move on Oda as well, because right from the get-go, it kind of shows the fact that the Marines are, you know, in concept, something which inspires like a good mindset. Like the idea and the concept of justice is obviously like one that's, you know, it's noble and it makes sense. It's like just basic law enforcement. Kobe is a decent kid and he was inspired in a good way through the Marines, while we were just shown why somebody can be inspired and can be shown good things through piracy. So and even though I was just talking juxtaposition, it was good that the Marines were kind of introduced slightly through Kobe and through being a net good. And because if you just had, you know, it just be pirates good, Marines bad, then, you know, you wouldn't really have a very complex story here. Like, you know, writing a story about the government being evil isn't exactly something that hasn't not been done before. So I appreciate Oda for doing that as well. But at the same time, the first real Marine that we're ever shown to, I guess except for Helmeppo, but like higher-ish ranking Marine we're showed to would be Captain Morgan. And I really, and this is kind of the part that I really enjoy about this is that we see the concept of not only we see the concept of a new beginning through Kobe, but we see the idea and the concept behind just dragging, I don't want to say evil, I wish I had a better word for evil, but just, you know, dragging on evil and continuing evil, because obviously everyone can agree that Captain Morgan was an evil person. Even his underlings hated being around him. And so we're introduced to this character who is this kind of light to the Marines. And through being around Luffy more, understands more of what it means to be somebody who inspires freedom, but being a Marine also understands what justice means, and that, you know, in a world with total freedom, there would need to be some way of showing justice to those who had freedom. Well, they don't really get into anything like that. Like, there's a lot of interesting angles with Kobe, as he's somebody who is the opposite of Luffy, not only in character, but in what he is reaching and what his goal is to be. He's pulling inspiration from this character who is a moral, technical opposite to him. But he's looking at somebody who is the same as him in what he wants or what he is, but he is a moral opposite. And so this is why I think Captain Morgan is actually an insanely... I don't think he's good. I think he has a personality of sanding paper. But in terms of what he is and what he represents, I think that Captain Morgan works perfectly, and why I think he's a great example of an introduction villain to One Piece. He's not just there to be like a power creep for Luffy and show how strong Luffy is, but he's there to further contextualize what the sort of quote unquote morality system behind the Marines is as well. From him, from Morgan, spawned corruption and just evil, but through Kobe and through his son Helmeppo, we see the idea of furthering a better future and furthering this idea of, maybe the Marines, even though they are the quote unquote bad guys because we're following a pirate crew, they don't have to be the bad guy. And so everything that kind of is represented through Morgan and is shown through both Helmeppo and Kobe, I think works beautifully. And I think also Helmeppo's transition through being this sleazeball who's just tattletaling, and him growing in character after seeing Kobe and seeing Luffy and Zoro. I love it. I love it so very much. And speaking of the GOAT himself, Zoro. Sanji's my number one. He's my boy. He's my favorite One Piece character. He's my favorite anime character. He's my favorite fictional character. But when it comes to the introduction of a side character, or like the first mate, I don't think Sanji could have done it the same way that Zoro did it. And I think that a lot of this has to do with the fact that Zoro was quite literally he was a lone dog. He didn't want anything to do with it. And anything to do with anything, but he was good at heart, and we knew that through the flashbacks that happened throughout the arc. I'm trying not to get too much into what happened story-wise, because I'm just kind of hoping the people who are watching this understand what's happening in the story, and so I'm gonna try not to get into anything, because again, I don't want people to watch this as some kind of replacement to watching it. If you have not seen One Piece, I hope you're confused. Go watch it. But after getting more flashbacks into Zoro's background and his character, and seeing his introduction to Luffy being willing to, save this guy that he didn't know, defy the Marines, and I think that at that point, it makes sense why Zoro would want to join him. But my absolute favorite thing about Zoro is his undying loyalty, and his not in he's just a dog kind of thing, but his faith in his own captain to be able to call him the future king of the pirates almost immediately after meeting him and just seeing his character a little bit. And this is something that gets brought up a lot in One Piece, and that's that Luffy's greatest power isn't his power to have stretch and shit like that, but it's the fact that he has the ability to inspire people. And this is something that I think the beginning of One Piece does as well, because in this exact, this first little actual mini plot of One Piece, he's inspiring civilians, he's inspiring bounty hunters who are the opposite of pirates, and he's inspiring Marines as they're literally saluting him off, sending him farewell, as he's leaving the island for saving them from corruption of their own boss. So, my overall thoughts on Romance Dawn, even though there's technically a little bit more to Romance Dawn, but there's a shit ton to talk about here at the beginning of it, and I tried to compress my thoughts as much as I could while getting out the main points. But I think that this is a near perfect introduction to a story, especially considering the one of One Piece. There is so much thematically that is just right about this. The introduction to Zoro is I would say is also perfect as well. I think Captain Morgan thematically, while again having the personality that of Sandpaper, the theming behind a villain means more to me than the villain himself. Sometimes anyway. But especially for what Morgan was supposed to be, I don't think I could have asked for a better introduction to this story. The themes hit, the emotional moments hit, and everything was perfect. I'm going to get a little crazy, and I'm going to give this between a D to an S+. I would give Romance Dawn an S tier, in my personal opinion. At least in the manga anyway. But gentlemen, your thoughts on Romance Dawn?
I would probably give it either an A+ or an S. Just because, for me, I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards A+. Just because, I don't know, the first two villains, I feel like Captain Morgan's, he's a pretty evil dude. Alvida's just whatever. Like,
Agreed.
I don't know. They didn't really intrigue me, but like I did really like Luffy's origin story. I did like the introduction to Zoro, but like I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good start. I think it is a pretty good start, don't get me wrong, but I know for me, like that first episode when I started it, cuz technically I started One Piece like probably back in like sophomore year, cuz I watched the very first episode and it didn't intrigue me at first. The anime episode didn't. But then I eventually gave it a chance again, and it was honestly, the rest of the arc is like pretty good. It's just I think it's that Alvida part that's a little bit slow, in my
Understandable.
opinion.
Yeah, I get that. That's why I'm kind of more of a read the manga first, because I think starting with Luffy's backstory just it helps with everything better, and it makes the Kobe and Luffy stuff even better in my opinion too. But yeah, no, I get that. I'll take an A plus. I know that an S tier is a very like people would be like, "Are you insane?" for that, but I don't know. Call me crazy, but just I don't know if you could have done much better with that. Much better with an introduction. I think it's perfect.
I would also tend to agree with Liam on this, that it's at least in my opinion, it's gonna be an S for me.
Yes, sir.
However, I did think of I did after a while think of two shows that I think actually did a pretty good job with their comedy in their first episodes, at least to me.
A word.
One Punch Man and Dr. Stone.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's fair. I haven't watched Dr. Stone's anime, so I don't really know what what all fit in the first episode, but you just remembering the first couple of chapters, that makes sense. And same thing with One Punch Man. Although I guess I'm trying not to focus, because I think One Punch Man is also one of those things that's kind of aimed more towards comedy than anything else. So I don't think I know that Oda likes to make people laugh, and he's openly said that, but I don't really know if that's the point of One Piece.
I don't know. There's a character who that seems to be their entire point, but we'll leave that for later episodes.
Shut the fuck up. All right. Reference. All right. Anybody have any bigger thoughts they want to talk about with Romance Stone that they think that I left out? I mean, I did leave out a lot, but again, I wanted to try not to My bigger thing was just the whole crew thing. That's my big takeaway. I fucking love that portion, and so there's a lot that I purposely left out, the whole sacrificing my arm for the future part. But I also want to try to leave out so people go watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, I mean, also I feel like people have talked enough about Shanks.
True.
He is a phenomenal character for as little screen time as he gets. So
absolutely.
But I feel like people have done quite a lot of talking about Shanks and also his early appearances.
Yeah, for real. Default, you? Or are you taking us to Orange Town, baby?
I think I'm ready to get into Orange Town.
Yes, sir.
By the way, I had to pull up my my anime list to figure out the shows.
I got it. I got it already. I was gonna be our navigator today.
No, to figure out which shows made me laugh in the first episode.
Oh, I thought you meant a arc order. Okay.
No.
Gotcha.
If you count parts other than part 1, I think JoJo. If you count part 2.
True.
And part 4.
Yeah.
But
let's get this shindig into Orange Town.
Let's get back to One Piece.
So with Orange Town, right? I think we leave off Romance Dawn with Luffy and Zoro. They're both leaving on the ship. I don't know when they come across Buggy's crew members, but they were on another ship, and I think they try to rob Zoro, and then they're like, "Oh fuck, that's Zoro, bro. I'm not messing with him." And so after he wakes up and he's like, "Sup?" They basically just go, and I don't remember if they fuck off or what happens, but eventually they come across Nami, but she's pretending she's fainted or whatever in a little small boat, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna rob her, bro. We're gonna make so much money," and I don't know. Essentially, they're like, "Excuse me, ma'am, how are you?" And then she just I forget what she does, but she fucks them up and she steals their ship.
The Nami thing came before before they ran into Zoro.
Oh really?
Yeah, they were in a boat and Nami was, and then they went to steal her treasure, and then she got into their better boat, and then lightning destroyed their boat. I remember they were in the water, and that's when Zoro ran into them, and they tried to take his boat.
Okay, yeah, that makes a little bit more sense then. But anyway, that's kind of like the beginning. It's like right between the two arcs, just so you get like a little bit of context. And so eventually, like they do land over at Orange Town. Are we gonna talk about? Should I include? Oh wait, no, that's later on, isn't it? Like Zoro's backstory. When does that take place? Like, are we going? I don't know if I would include that, like the manga version or like the anime version, because I think that happens after Nami's on the boat, right?
Yeah, it's during Orange Town.
Okay, so I'll go over that later on. Well, let's just get into the meat and potatoes of this arc. So, eventually they make it to the town, and you got fucking Buggy, right? Buggy's like taking over the town, and the cool thing about Buggy is he's the first villain that you pretty much just get introduced to that actually has like a devil fruit besides Luffy. And it's pretty interesting because I think Zoro goes and he chops at like Buggy, and bro just like splits apart, and he's just like, what? And then eventually you just find out that he has the chop fruit. I don't remember the Japanese name for it, but that's the introduction to Buggy. And
I believe it's the Bara no Mi, but I could be wrong.
I think it is the Bara no Mi. I think I did read that. But yeah, so a little bit before that, I kind of jumped a bit ahead, but Luffy then also runs into Nami, and she like stole some like shit from some of the people from the town, and she's like I think Luffy asks her to like be part of the team. Sorry, I don't remember. See, the thing is, like, I don't remember like the early parts of this arc. That the early parts kind of throw me off. But like essentially, like they meet up and they're like, yeah, we gotta go stop Buggy from like taking over this town. And so eventually they go, and I think Luffy gets stuck. The thing is, I don't remember this arc the best. It sucks. I don't know if you guys remember it any better than I do, but it's like all mixed up everywhere, because I don't remember the part, because there's a part where Luffy gets stuck in a cage, and then there's the part where he's like helping out the dog. Like, there's so many different parts about this arc. But I know the big takeaway is definitely Buggy. Buggy, the most overpowered villain in One Piece. You know, he's got the best devil fruit, best crew. Buggy's just also just like the funniest villain. Like, let's be honest, guys. Like, name a villain funnier than Buggy.
In One Piece or in anything?
In One Piece.
Yeah, I don't think there are any.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
I mean, I guess it comes down to like personal preference on what you find funny, but
I'm just kind of being kind of sarcastic, but I mean, Buggy is just like it's crazy because you think Buggy is just another one-off villain like Morgan or like what's her name, Alvida, but like no, Buggy's still fucking relevant in the story to this day. Spoiler alert, but like yeah.
Puts the spoiler alert after the spoiler.
I mean, it's just, I don't know. I just think it's funny. Like, I'm not gonna talk about how he's relevant still, but like, I just think it's funny that this dude is actually still relevant. But anyway, the main takeaways, just because I don't remember the order of this arc, so I'll just kind of go through like the main points I remember. Essentially, Buggy's fucking destroying this town with his buggy balls, right? He's like shooting them around. There's like these cannonballs, right? But they're like fucking destructive ones. So he's just destroying
buggy balls. Excuse you.
Yeah, that's what I said. The buggy balls, yeah.
I didn't hear it. I just heard I heard they're like cannonballs but destructive ones. And I'm like, dude, put some respect on the buggy balls.
Yeah, no, the buggy balls are fucking up this town.
Well, it's the most destructive weapon in One Piece.
It's also the most destructive one. Like, there's no weapons, totally no other weapons that destroy shit more than the buggy balls, obviously.
Like, the ancient weapons are all just prototypes for the buggy ball.
Literally. But essentially, like, one of the things that like really happens that I honestly like thought was like a pretty good part is the part with the dog. Because the dog, his name's Chow Chow. He pretty much his whole little like house that his former owner, which his owner actually like passed away, and it's inspired by that story. I think it's what is it? Is it Hachi? I wish I remembered the dog's name, but it's inspired by that Japanese like guy that he like passed away and the dog kept waiting, and there's like a whole like memorial for it. I'm pretty sure in like Japan. You guys probably have like seen it before, or like you guys have probably heard of it, but essentially like that's what happens, and the dog's like kind of waiting there, and Buggy's guy, this dude of like he's like a lion tamer, because most of Buggy's yeah Moji and his lion Richie, they start to go after Luffy again, and Chow Chow goes and he's trying to pick a fight with this huge ass lion. It was crazy. He's like biting this lion, even though he's a little tiny ass dog. He's gonna get fucked up. He still goes for it. It's crazy. But eventually Luffy beats him, and they escape, and then they try and go back over to Buggy again, right? So once they get over there, then they have to fight his other henchman, which is Kabaji, and he's like the acrobat dude. And so Zoro's having a fight with him, and Zoro eventually does beat him. And then it's finally the fight with Buggy and Luffy. And the most interesting thing about Buggy that happens of this is you find out that he's actually like an acquaintance of Shanks. So I think that's pretty cool. Like this random villain is like actually just like he was like an acquaintance of like Shanks in the past. And you also see a very important character in these flashbacks too. I don't want to go over him quite yet because he's important later on in the story, but he's kind of like pretty much being like, hey, Shanks and Buggy, you guys gotta fuck off. Stop like having fights and shit. And it's crazy how important that character is later on. But anyway, you kind of just see the whole thing of how Buggy gets his devil fruit, where he's like pretending like he's gonna eat it, and he just fakes it, and he's like, yeah guys, I'm just gonna go and leave this ship, and I'm gonna go sell the devil fruit. And he fucks up because Shanks goes and jump scares him, like coming from behind him, and Buggy puts it in his mouth. And then, you know, he's talking to Shanks for a bit, and Shanks is like, oh, what you eating there? Like, you know, you're gonna get the chef angry. And then he, like, leaves, and then he comes right back over, and then this time he scares the shit out of, like, Buggy again, and this time he swallows it. And I forget what happens, but Buggy somehow falls into the water, and Shanks is like, oh shit, he actually did eat a fruit, and so he has to go and save him, and then boom, he gets saved. That's like Buggy's whole backstory, and then you know eventually Luffy does beat him. He pretty much just like separates his body, and he takes away his like torso and leaves it. I'm trying to remember what he does. I know he essentially like separates him, and then he sends like his like tiny parts flying, like it's his head, his like hands, and his feet.
He also kicks him in the balls.
And he kicks him in the balls too. I forgot about that. Important. Sorry, I know this. I know Orange Town is a bit of a struggle. My expertise comes in the next arc. But yeah, eventually they all head off. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to mention is the mayor. The mayor keeps trying to fight, but the mayor, he's not powerful, bro. He's not gonna do shit. Like, bro thinks he's Luffy, but he's just not Luffy. He don't got anything that's like powering him up. And so Luffy is like getting annoyed that bro keeps trying to get in the fight, and he legit knocks the mayor out. And the townspeople are like, "What the fuck are you doing? Why are you attacking the mayor?" And eventually, like, they all chase him out, and then like the mayor wakes up. He starts going after them too, and he's pretending like he's angry. But then afterwards, you'd find out he's not actually angry. He's trying to thank them for saving the town because, you know, Luffy and them got all Buggy's like crew out of there. Well, I mean, I guess the townspeople chased them out, but Buggy's not anymore. That's like the main point. So yeah, like the main plot points though of this arc, just to like wrap this up, is essentially you get introduced to Nami, she's really important. She's their navigator. And at this point, she pretty much just says, like, I don't want to be your navigator, like, or I'm not really interested in it because I hate pirates, but, like, sure, whatever, I'll be your navigator. Like, she just wants the treasures. And then also Buggy, like, meeting Buggy is, like, one of the most important things, because Buggy is just the best antagonist in the show, obviously, so. That's pretty much, like, Orange Town, and also now Luffy and Zoro have, like, a navigator, so they know where they're going. Because they legit just didn't know where they were going. Because, like, Luffy doesn't really know directions, and I mean, Zoro just doesn't have any sense of direction, so it was a really big, like, help. And also, just like I said, like, this is the first introduction to, like, Devil Fruit users besides Luffy. But anyway, we get to Syrup Village next, which Syrup Village is probably, I really liked Syrup Village. I really did. And I know a lot of people don't like it. Like, Syrup Village is probably one of the most unpopular arcs in, like, the series. Besides, I think, Long Ring, Long Land, and I'm trying to think what else. I know.
Hey, yo, we're gonna rank Orange Town.
Oh, Orange Town. Yeah, let's rank it. I would say Orange Town is, like, maybe, like, I want to say, like, maybe an A. I don't want to say A+. I'll give it an S.
Orange Town.
Or, I don't
mean,
know.
if that's what you think, go for it, man. But I respect that. That might be crazier than Romance Dawn.
Actually, no. You know what? No, I'll give it an A+. I couldn't even remember half the shit. So, I think A+
Remember
is...
the arc, puts it as S.
What are you thinking, David? What are you cooking in there? What are you cooking?
Probably like a solid B+, maybe A.
I was gonna hit it with a B. I think it's good. I think it's carried by Buggy and Luffy. I mean, think it's pretty.
The only
alright.
reason is I guess because, like, importance to the story, because there's actually some kind of pretty important stuff that happens or gets introduced.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but I give it a.
If it wasn't for the story importance, it would probably be like a B- or B.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no. I changed mine. I'm gonna go for a B+. I think I was a bit
Look
too
at this
generous.
guy going with the crowd. Look at this guy.
I'm
Pressure.
only hitting it with a B because, like, like a One Piece B, like a One Piece tier B is like an any other anime tier A. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. Like, I'd watch Orange Town over a lot of other arcs. I'm only talking about Fairy Tail, guys. Oh, okay, yeah, no. I'm sticking with B though, but a B+ is pretty understandable as well.
Alright, and then we get into, like I said, Syrup Village. I really like Syrup Village. I'm the rare enjoyer of Syrup Village. Let's get right into it. So, at the beginning of Syrup Village, you get introduced to my favorite Straw Hat. I fucking love him, Usopp. Usopp's going around town. He's running around the town, and he's like, "The pirates are here! The pirates are coming! The pirates are coming!" And then, like, everyone's just like, "Huh?" But then he just goes off and he starts giggling because he's just trolling the town. There's no pirates. He's just... The thing about Usopp is he's a liar. He's a liar, he's a troll. And that's why I like him. I just think he's fucking funny for that. And so, Usopp in the town is, he's like the town menace. And he has 3 little buddies, that they're the Usopp Pirates. And their names are Tom and... I'm looking at this now. I never remembered their names, but it's Tomanegi, Ninjin, and P-Man.
It is carrot, onion, and pepper in English.
I was gonna say I thought they were.
At least I think it's pepper. I know it's carrot and onion, but I'm pretty sure it's pepper.
So they don't do any harm. They're just literally just the town trolls essentially. But the thing that's actually nice about Usopp though is, like, even though he's like a troll, he uses his lying in like a good way too. So there's this girl in the town. Her name's Kaya, and she's bedridden. And what Usopp will do is he'll pretty much just go over there, and he'll climb up the in the anime he climbs up the tree. It's in the manga apparently he just, like, it's like a 1-story floor, so he's not climbing up anything. But he'll just go up there and he'll tell Kaya tales of, like, him being on the sea. Usopp's never been on the sea, guys. He's never been on the sea at all at this point. Like, he's just making this shit up to like pretty much cheer her up. And whenever like she's doing that, she has this butler, and his name's Kalahador. I don't really know how to say it right, but it's something like Kalahador. That's not actually his real name, by the way, guys, because he's not actually a butler. He's Captain Kuro. He's the evil leader of the Zesty Pirates. Just kidding. They're called the Black Cat Pirates, but essentially his whole thing is that he's supposed to be this guy that was supposed to be executed like years ago, but he didn't actually get executed. He switched places with someone else, and he worked to acquire the villagers' respect, and he pretty much is just trying to gain the trust of Kaya, because I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure like they say that he killed her parents like at sea or something. Like I could be totally wrong, and they could have just like died at sea, but anyway, the most important point is that like he's trying to get the money from her. Like he's had this plan that just pretty much whenever she dies, he gets all the money, and that's his like plan of like being a retired pirate or something like that. It's a really goofy plan, to be honest. Like I don't know why bro wouldn't just like keep being a pirate, but it doesn't really matter. But essentially the Straw Hats finally make it to the village, and Usopp is like, oh shit, there's actually real pirates this time. And then when he goes around town telling people, like, no one believes him. But it turns out that whenever Luffy goes over there and talks to him, he finds out that Usopp is actually the son of one of Shanks' crewmates named Yasop, which Yasop is the sniper of Shanks' group. And it's pretty funny because Usopp's also a sniper, except he doesn't use guns, he uses a little slingshot. But anyway, eventually, like, you know, they're all hanging out, and Usopp takes them out to the diner, and they're all eating, and I think Usopp in the middle of it is like, oh shit, I have to go do something. And so when he goes over to Kaya's house, and he starts telling her more stories, and Luffy and the crew are like, where the hell did he go? And his little buddies, like all the little, we're gonna call them the little vegetable crew, or like I guess we'll call, well, that's not their names. They're like the Usopp Pirates. The Usopp Pirates go and take them to Kaya's house, and they're like, yo, what are you doing? And Usopp's being like, why are you guys here? Like, you guys gotta go. And eventually Kalahador comes over, and he's like, yeah, you guys aren't gonna be here. He kicks everyone out. Usopp's kind of pissed. And then eventually, like, him and Luffy go to the beach, I'm pretty sure. And I think they were, like, arguing because of that shit. And then apparently they overhear Captain Kuro, which, like I said, that's his actual name. He's not Kalahador. Kuro and this other dude, his name is Django, which it's kind of funny. Django's relevant in the story somewhat still, but Kuro's just nowhere to be seen. Just because I guess, I don't know. I don't know if Oda just didn't like Kuro or what, but they're down there talking, and they're basically saying like, oh yeah, we're gonna go through with our plan finally, and they go over it loudly, and Usopp and Luffy hear him, and I don't know what the fuck, like why they said something, but Luffy goes and he like starts shouting at him, and he just, I don't remember how it happens, but he falls down the cliff, and they think he died, but I mean obviously he didn't die. The story's got to continue somehow. And what happens is they come up with a plan that Usopp goes over and tells like Nami and Zoro, and he's like, yeah, there's like an actual like pirate invasion that's gonna happen with Kuro, because like Kuro's actually a pirate, he tells him, and they come up with this really cool plan where they're gonna pretty much just make this like whole hill area where they have to come up from like the docks, all slipperied up with like oil and shit, and they just won't be able to come up, and Usopp's just gonna like fire at them when they like start climbing up the hill, so they're just not gonna be able to come up from that. But unfortunately it doesn't come out that way, and they land on the other side of the island. But I want to talk about my favorite scene in this, like one of my favorite parts. Like the reason why I like this arc is because of like this one thing that Kuro does. So during this, like right before like the plan pretty much gets executed that he does, during the night when he's just like he pulls out his like cat claws and he's like has like the claw up to her neck. He's like ready to do something, and I guess he just starts monologuing for some reason. And this dude Mary, which is Kaya's like other, I don't know if he's like a butler or what, but he like kind of overhears, and Kuro just fucks him up, bro. Like he legit almost kills this dude. And that part just really intrigued me. I don't know why, but like the way they had the scene set up in the anime, I just really like that part. I don't know if you guys remember that, but like that was probably one of my favorite parts of that arc. Like I just like holy shit. Like I don't know, he doesn't do anything too crazy in that arc, but like that part right there was just like wow, okay, I like that. That's cool.
That was probably the first moment that I took a One Piece villain like completely seriously.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
100% seriously.
Like
Yeah.
I was like holy shit, because like all the other villains at this point, Alvida wasn't that crazy, Morgan wasn't that crazy, Buggy's a, you know, he just jokes around, he trolls. Like Kuro's like that first serious villain that you get in the series, and it's like crazy even though he's not that significant of a villain. I just love that scene. I don't know why, but anyway, eventually the plan goes through, and like I said, they dock the ships on the whole other side of the island, because I guess Usopp forgets, he's like, oh shit, I just remembered there's like another side of the island where they can dock at. And so they get there really late, and they're like, fuck, what do we do? But eventually Luffy comes, and he just like, he fucks up their ship. He goes over, and I don't remember if he punches the ship or what happens, but like, I think he like grabs a part of the ship and then slams it, if I'm right. And that whole ship just pretty much gets fucked up, and all of like the crewmates are like, oh shit, what do we do? Like, how are we gonna like fight this? And in the meanwhile, fucking what's his name? Kuro's getting pissed because he's like, you know, you guys gotta do something. We're supposed to have this plan going through, and you guys aren't doing shit. Like, what's going on? And he's like, if you guys don't start doing shit, then I'm just gonna fucking kill you, like myself, because I'm getting pissed. And he even includes Django in that plan too, that he's gonna kill him too. And so they all start panicking, and I think Luffy just like doesn't take that, because like Liam said earlier about how important like the crew is to Luffy. Like Luffy hearing this shit about this dude fucking up his own crew just really pisses him off, and that's when they start fighting. And like at this point they're like, Kuro's kind of like hyped up as like this really fucking like scary dude, and you kind of see him like go spinning around with his like claws and shit. I honestly thought he was gonna be like a really tough competition for Luffy. I mean, I think at that point in like the story, he's not like super like tough compared to Luffy. Like I think Buggy probably posed like more of a fight than he did. I could be wrong on that, but you know, because obviously Buggy has powers and Kuro doesn't, but he does come off kind of scary with these fucking claws.
Hey, yo, quick fun fact to kind of interject, 'cause I'm probably going to forget this later when we're ranking this arc, but just as kind of a, like what you were saying, like the whole, maybe he comes off as more intimidating. Jenga, remember that part when Jenga throws that little ring and, like, Luffy catches it with his teeth?
I don't remember that part. When was that?
Like when he's down at the bay with Nami, like, Jenga, like, throws that little circular blade, and then, like, Luffy catches it with his teeth.
Oh, I think I do kind of remember it, yeah.
Yeah, and in the manga, no, Luffy takes that right to the fucking face. No, to the back of the head. He takes it to the back of the head, and I think Kuro gives him like some significant damages as well. Like that was probably the most we've seen Luffy beaten up in the entire manga, at least in the manga. Since I just think they kind of toned down the gore, but it was pretty gory in the manga. Just a quick little fun fact for everyone.
Yeah, it's like honestly, I think that this arc is like this is like the first probably like serious arc where we're like, I don't know, people are really getting like threatened. It's not just like Luffy and his crew getting threatened, like the whole island is getting like fucked over with this. Well, actually that's not true. I literally just talked about the Buggy arc, but I don't know, this is like probably one of the more serious arcs though, because like I said, the villain's more serious. Like the shit that he has going on is kind of crazy. It's like I feel like this is more of like, how do you say it? It's not like Buggy's arc, where Buggy's arc is just like, haha, I shoot buggy ball, I destroy village, haha. Like, this dude's got like a whole plan going on with it. And it's like, it's a lot more elaborate and shit. So, I kind of like how this arc kind of is like the beginning of like those really elaborate plan arcs, like, that we'll see later down in the line, like, kind of like with Alabasta and with, you know, what's the other one? Dressrosa. But yeah, so I think it's like the first one where the villain has like a plan that he's like kind of just had planned out. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, eventually Luffy does, like, him and Luffy are fighting, and then Kaya shows up, and Kaya's like has to start running away because, you know, she's obviously gonna get killed. And so after she's like running away, Django and or I think it's just Django, yeah. Django starts chasing after her to try and get her. And so Usopp and Zoro are going after them. I think Nami's still, or no, Nami's like down on the ship. She's looting the fucking pirates. And Luffy's just over here like handling bro. And so eventually, like, Usopp and Zoro put an end to Django and they stop him. They save Kaya. And like I said, Luffy eventually does beat Kuro. And the arc kind of ends, like, I mainly want to get to the end of this arc, because the end of this arc is probably one of the most important parts. First off, like, since they save the village, Usopp, or what's his name, Mary goes and he's like, oh, thank you guys for protecting Kaya, I appreciate it. We really want to help you out, so we're gonna give you guys your very own ship. And this is where the Going Merry gets introduced. Such a great ship. Such a very important ship. But also importantly, this is where Usopp gets recruited. And I just love Usopp. Usopp is like, the best part about Usopp is he's like one of the most like serious, like, obviously like he's a really funny character, but he's also like the most like realistic character. Like, he thinks the most logical for the most part. Like, even though he's a goofball, he knows what he's talking about for the most part, except for in Water 7, he kind of gets goofy there, but I really like Usopp. I like this arc. As for ranking this arc, this time I actually do mean it. I would give Sierra Village an A+. I really like this arc. I would consider it an underrated arc. I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's what I would have to probably say about that.
I'm gonna give it an A+ too, and my biggest reason is that Kuro lifting his glasses with the palm of his hand at the beginning of the arc is better foreshadowing than most mangas will ever have.
That's true.
I mean, ever. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not just gonna start. This isn't gonna become an anime roast thing, but that is seriously better foreshadowing than most animes have. So,
Yeah.
like, that's an A+ alone. And, like, again, Kuro being as intimidating as he was seriously helped him. He was the first villain that felt actually threatening. And I think that they also, there's something that's oddly, like, there's something that's really charming about Usopp being as, like, kind of quote-unquote pathetic as he is, like, as, like, you know, as much of a liar and as much of a sneak, that seeing the fact that the only escape from him being, like, Kaya, the only escape that he has, like, where he can feel like he's cool, is being taken away from him. And, like, I don't know, dude, Usopp was fucking baller in this arc. I loved his introduction. He probably has my second favorite introduction of any Straw Hat, which we'll get into that soon. But no, dude, fucking Usopp is great. Fucking phenomenal arc.
I would also put it at A+ as well. And something that I would like to point out is I do just kind of really like the play on his name, where Uso is Japanese for lie, and it's also referencing the Aesop fables. So his name basically is just like, yeah, I'm a liar, so what?
Real.
And I also do like
pretty
the
cool.
fact that, to my knowledge, Captain Kuro was the first person to wound Luffy without using like cheap tricks like how Buggy did.
Yeah.
Captain Kuro actually just like was close enough to on par and these people are complete monsters who have kind of just decimated everyone before, whether they were injured or not. I mean, if you look at Zoro versus Kabuji, like, he was injured and let himself get injured more and still had a fairly easy time.
Yeah, true.
So it kind of speaks to how strong Kuro actually kind of was. And I do also really like the fact that Usopp is so weak, and he kind of feels like the first real human traveling with the Straw Hats. I guess, like, you know, Nami is there too, but just because of the way that Usopp carries himself, he feels like the first real human, I guess. Because I would be scared shitless if I was in the situations they were in. And I know Nami is too a lot of the times, but not quite to the extent that Usopp seems to be, at least this early on.
Hell yeah. All right, well, I think, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You guys have been trapped into a fucking Sanji rant. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I had a joke planned out, but I'm not gonna fucking get into it. You know what? I'm gonna go with a similar theme that I was before, where I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty of the arc. I'm not gonna get into the like what exactly happens in the Baratier. I'm not gonna get into dishwashing Luffy, and there's a couple things I'm gonna focus on, and that is the introduction to Sanji's character, what he means to the Straw Hats, and why this man is the fucking goat shit. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Baratier, you know, I'll give this bit of substance. So, you know, after a long bit of fighting, you know, Straw Hats need a little tum-tum. They need to get a little food in their bellies. And there so happens to be a you know, a little fucking restaurant out at sea, which is, by the way, for what the One Piece world is fucking baller. That is a fucking cool ass idea, and I love Zeph for doing it. But they go into this little quaint little establishment. You walk in, there he is. You know him, you love him. My goat, Sanji. So, so at the beginning of this arc, you know, so far throughout the story, Luffy has been very straightforward. He sees somebody that he likes. It's like, oh, I need this on my crew. I need this on my crew, and I need that on my crew. He's like, hey, you want to join my crew? Sometimes they say no. Sometimes they say yes. I mean, there has always been a little bit of convincing that's had to go into each of them. Like, nobody just said yes right away. Except for that one person who did, but then didn't, and then did again. But anyway, so there's always been a bit of trouble with that, and so Sanji was the first person that kind of was like, I guess you could say Nami too, but Sanji was the first person who was like hell-bent on not doing it and on not going. And that was one of the first things that always kind of struck me, to be honest. Like, you know, none of them felt like, they were just felt kind of like, oh, why the fuck should I, you know, join you? You're a little piss boy with a weird little hat. Why should I join you, loser? And so, but Sanji felt like kind of convicted as to why he, you know, didn't want to join right off the bat. But from the get-go, you're introduced to a couple key aspects of Sanji's character, and I always forget this guy's name, but I know that David, what's the name of the fucker who got the rice?
Gin.
Gin? Gin?
G-I-H-N or G-H-I-N.
I don't know. Yeah, that guy. I'm gonna call him Rice Man because I don't know. That's just one of those names that I never got down right, and I'm calling him Rice Man.
You could also call him one of the coolest character designs in any anime but One Piece.
True. Very, very true and very based. But no. So so we're introduced to Sanji. You know, Luffy's like, yeah, you be my cook, and then Sanji's like, no, piss off, little shitter. And, you know, Sanji is this kind of person who comes across as having the, like, you know, as like just kind of this kind of, I don't want to say a brat, but like somebody who's just kind of like, you know, piss off, I don't care, a very like, you know, I will just tell you to shut the fuck up. He seems like very ill-tempered and low-tempered. And so at first he comes across as this character that's kind of just, one, a womanizer, which he is, two, ill-tempered, and you're like, oh, this character seems like he's going to suck. And then he's going to be really stinky and poopy and awful, and then the Rice Man comes in, the funny guy comes in. This dude who has no food, has absolutely nothing, comes up, and then my boy, who is indeed cooking, cooks this man a meal because he doesn't have any food. And he doesn't say anything. He doesn't ask for thanks, even when the dude's like, shoving his face, literally would have been dying. Gives this man the best gourmet dish he's ever had. So we already know, like, off the bat that there probably is more to this person. There's more to Sanji that we get. There's more to him, and we just don't understand it. And that's kind of actually the case for, like, 80% of One Piece until you reach Whole Cake, which is another one of my favorite parts about Sanji. But, we're kind of shown this different side of the person where there is a care for people. So now it comes down to, like, okay, so this character clearly doesn't have a bad heart, but, like, what is it that makes him tick? And that is one of my favorite ways to introduce a character. That's why I also love Guts so much. But so skipping past a lot of the smaller details, getting into Sanji's backstory. I'm also going to inform a lot of anime onlys. This backstory is a lot more fucking gruesome in in the manga. So yeah. So back in when Sanji was a little kid, he was part of this, like, I guess it was like a cooking ship or something. They never really get too much into it, but it's not really that big of a deal. Anyway, you find out that Zeph, the owner of the Baratier, Sanji's trainer / father figure, was a pirate, and they ransacked their little ship, and it was during a really bad storm, and the ships crashed, and he saw wait, I think there's a couple details that I'm missing, but okay, basically pirate invasion, bad sea storm. Zeph saves Sanji. We're not really too sure why. That's kind of what's important, because that's not really the part of the backstory that I care about that much. But so the two of them end up getting, unless somebody wanted to add in a detail that they thought was important to his backstory, which I don't really know. I don't think that there's like that part of the backstory is what people care about. All right, word. Oh no, is there something you want to add, David?
No, nothing really. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
I thought I was unmuting to say that, but I was actually muting to say it, and then cleared my throat after unmuting again.
Oh, swag. Okay. Anyway, so they get stranded on this little rock where there's like no food, there's nothing. Like there is literally fucking nothing on this island. And anime fans, you would notice that this is the part where Zeph cuts off his leg. Yeah, he has his leg on the island, and so a manga reader would be like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then the two of them, so he gives him a big bag. Zeph gives like a big bag to himself and a little bag to Sanji, and Sanji is kind of like, hey, you get more food, and but Zeph's like, oh, no, we're splitting it evenly, and then because I'm bigger than you, I need more food, yada yada yada. And okay, so I'm a little rough on these numbers. I believe in the manga it was 2 weeks, or in the anime it was like 2 weeks they went without food or some shit like that. But in the manga it's like a fucking month and a half. It is a long time that those two are like with like their little bags of food in the manga. And so we skip over all this time, and Sanji is like, nothing but bone and he finds like one of the cutlery knives, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna go over there, I'm gonna kill that guy, and I'm gonna eat the rest of his food, because Sanji peeks over, like there's like kind of like I want to say like a makeshift wall, like just kind of like a stone hill between the two of them, so they can't see each other at all times. Also so that they could, like, because of that little hill, they're both on separate sides of the island, keeping lookout for any ships that come their way. Sanji's like, oh, I'm gonna kill this dude, and then Sanji goes and he's like, all right, let's do this. And then he cuts open the bag, and what do you know? There's nothing but treasure. Nothing but fucking treasure. There's no food in that bag. And Sanji looks at him, and in complete and utter shock, bro's leg is missing. Zeph ate his entire ass fucking leg to give himself sustenance. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, oh, the anime did this a favor, because wouldn't he bleed out by eating his own leg? And you know what I say to that? Fuck you, you're stupid, and I think you're smelly. Anyway, they both get saved, Baratier's made, yada yada yada, happy friendship time. But this is what I love about Sanji's character. So obviously, it contextualizes why Sanji would never ever want food to be wasted in his life. All those times that your parents were like, "Oh, there's children in Africa starving, eat your food," or whatever the fuck. Sanji is the only person that actually gets to say that. Nobody else does. So, not only does that give serious contextualization into why his character is and ticks the way that he does, but it means that, like, food has more than just, like, Sanji isn't just a cook because One Piece needed a cook. There needs to be someone who makes food on the ship. Sanji is a cook because food is fucking everything to this guy. And it is his passion. It is what he loves to do. And that it's been proven through and through, especially with that whole situation with Zeph. But you get even more to it later. And I love that kind of aspect to Sanji, that he is not just a cook, because, like, and I think that this is kind of like my thing right now with a couple of her Straw Hats, like, especially with Nami, where, like, I'm not really convinced that she's, like, she sometimes she feels more like a navigator to me because One Piece needed a navigator than she is a navigator because Nami wants to be a navigator. I could be totally tweaking on that, but I don't know. Sanji really buys me on why he is a cook and why he loves cooking so much, and I feel his passion, and it is why I love his character so much. It may also come from somebody who just also enjoys cooking, and that might be where some of my bias is coming through here. But I really just love his appreciation of food and how that appreciation of food ties to an appreciation of people as well. So, and, like, the value of, like, nurturing and giving people good food to eat, except when it's Luffy. But I love his introduction as a character. I think that it makes Stubborn make sense because he believes that he owes Zeph his life, and that is why he can't go with Luffy, despite the fact that behind that, like, kind of smug demeanor, like, you know, Sanji's, you know, 19 years old and he smokes and, like, he tries to walk and talk like an adult, but he's a kid. He is pretending to be a kid. He wants to find this fictional sea, quote unquote fictional sea, called the All Blue, which is like a cook's paradise. And it's why I also vibe with him so much, because he's an adult. No, he's a kid pretending to be an adult with a kiddish dream, but he understands, like, you know, that he kind of has to have that demeanor. And I'm not again, this isn't the Sanji podcast, so I'm not gonna get into why I fucking love and vibe with this character so much. But there's a special tie to his personality, and his love for cooking and his love for boobs. No, I'm just kidding. That I don't know. And just everything about that character that ticks, I vibe with all of it so fucking much. Don Krieg is boring. I hate Don Krieg. Boring ass Nene character. Only thing keeping Baratier from being a perfect arc. And I that's all I'm gonna say about that. I don't really know what else to tell you guys. I fucking hate Don Krieg, and I think that Gin is, like, fucking miles better than him in every way imaginable. So, like, there's some cool fights, I guess, in Baratier. I don't think the action is what people care about. The only thing that's important to notice is that Don Krieg went to the Grand Line and got hella fucked up. He was, like, the strongest person in the East Blue, and he's being followed by some dude named Drakeal Mihawk, who's Mihawk! And then, like, you know, they're just fighting, and then Mihawk is like, "Oh, here, guys, it's that ship I cut in half earlier. What if I did it again?" And then bro just does it again, pulls up. He's like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" And Zoro's like, "Oh shit, that's the guy I want to fuck up." And then Baratier goes back to being peak. So this is a similar thing with Shanks, where I don't want to say the same thing that's been said 100,000 times. This scene is fucking awesome. Zoro versus Mihawk is one of the most rent-free moments in One Piece in my entire head. And I'm not even a big Zoro fan. I said it here. I am a Sanji fanboy. This scene, this fight lives rent-free in my fucking head because it is one of the best fights to take place in the beginning of an anime, period. Like, it is fucking good. Not just because of what it means thematically, what it is action-wise. It is just perfect in every fucking way of the words. And I don't know what to tell you other than To anybody who knows the writer of Doctor Stone, if you have the Viz Manga app, I want you to go on the Viz Manga app and search One Piece by Boichi. Boici, or boss. I don't know. I don't know how to say it in Japanese. I don't speak that language. But he redrew this in the Doctor Stone style, the whole fight, and it is really fucking phenomenal. I love his paneling and I love his work. And he is a huge fan of Oda, and he is a huge fan of the series, and he does it justice. So go check that out. It is really good. I think if you just search One Piece, it's like the fifth thing that comes up, with the fourth or fifth thing that comes up on the Viz Manga app. But just find a way to read. I think it's also labeled Zolo versus Mihawk because of the weird translation issues that happen in early One Piece. But yeah, it's phenomenal. And that's a very good way to read it as well. Obviously, also read Oda's version of it, because why would the fuck would you not do that? But it just really, the fight does a good job at restapling what Zoro means to the crew itself. And I think that it was a really good way of like showing that Sanji and Zoro are both, even though Sanji just got introduced, Oda really wanted to staple home that these are the wings of the Pirate King. Not one, even though Zoro, like, obviously we couldn't introduce both at the same time. That would have gotten too crazy. But Oda did a fucking phenomenal job at showing that both of these characters are going to be important in major ways. And they're both going to have Luffy's back in major ways. So, I think that the way that Oda keeps both these characters so important, because even though, like, Zoro's moment lives rent-free in my head, a lot of Sanji's moments live rent-free in my head in this arc as well, with it obviously being his arc. But it also doesn't feel like Zoro overpowers him. There's a great balance between how important these characters feel. And this is like, literally Don Krieg is the only thing that's dragging this arc down. And I don't even think it's by that much. Like, he's a powerhouse and he does what he's meant to do. He's just a wall. It's all he's meant to be, I believe. So, oh, not to mention, there's also the part where Nami takes the Mary and, goes off with it to some place that we don't know. And the two, fucking Yasuku and Johnny, my boys, the gentlemen who worked with Zoro before. Fucking miss those dudes, on God, for real. But yeah, no, they're there and they're like, oh, Nami's gone, going to Arlong Park. And we'll get into that fucking peak fiction in just a moment. But first, I would like to honor Baratier arc with the first S+ tier. Fucking peak arc and one of my absolute favorites in One Piece. Not just because of Sanji.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm definitely gonna put it at S+ too. I don't think there's anywhere else it really could go. Even with, like you said, Don Krieg kind of being like, I mean, not even like an awful villain. Like, there are shows with worse villains, but even with him kind of dragging it down, just everything else that the arc brings to the table. Even if it was just like Sanji's introduction and Zoro, which is like the main part, like the Zoro versus Mihawk and Sanji's introduction.
Yeah.
Without all the other little stuff, I think that's enough to carry it up. But honestly, I can't place it anywhere else. And with the Zoro versus Mihawk thing, I mean, if you haven't watched it, you gotta go watch One Piece just for this fight.
Oh, fucking facts. And also, again, check out Dr. Stone, the author of Dr. Stone, who did it, especially if you're a One Piece fan, because he's a huge fucking fan of One Piece, and he does that fucking fight justice. So, default thoughts?
I'm feeling an S tier.
Oh, no.
See, no. Like, the reason why I'm putting it in an S tier is because I think that the next arc, that's gonna be my S+ tier. Spoiler alert. That is my S+ tier. Like, that is my standard for, like, S+ tier.
Wait till this guy finds out that I'm inventing the GODa tier, which is above the S+ tier.
Oh, okay, then alright, fine. Okay. I was gonna say, because if we're doing GODa tier, then, like, fine, I will put this in S+, but I have to say, like, some of the big parts about this arc that, honestly, like, there's a lot of really small things that you can miss, like, especially with, like, the Zoro fight, where, like, after this fight, like, first off, he makes that commitment that he's never gonna lose again, which that's fucking huge. Like,
facts.
he literally is like, yeah, Luffy, I want you to know, as your fucking swordsman, as your like right hand man, I'm never losing a fucking fight again. I'm winning. I'm winning every single time. And he's like, and bro commits to it. And also, he gets a lot more serious after this arc too. Like in these like early chapters, he'll like laugh. He'll have a fun time. Bro, Zoro ain't having a fun time anymore after these like after the fucking Baratie arc. I mean, he can, but like you'll never see him like actually like having like a hard laugh or anything. Like he'll have like a smile, like a slight smile, a slight chuckle, but bro is never gonna be doing a like yeah, you're not gonna see that shit from Zoro. But also for Mihawk, like I think it's really interesting. Like I don't know if they officially like say it in this arc, but like fucking Mihawk is like the first introduction to one of the warlords, and like you kind of really get to see how powerful these fucking warlords really are, like how they earn that title. Like Mihawk really shows it off.
Yeah.
And like literally with him in the fight, like bro doesn't even use his like big sword. Bro's using his like little butter knife to fucking fight Zoro, and he still kicks Zoro's ass. Like it's insane. But like yeah, that fight is just such a highlight of this arc for me.
I think my favorite comment that I've ever heard about the whole Mihawk knife thing was that Mihawk uses bigger knives to cut vegetables than he used to murk Zoro with.
True.
That's probably my favorite one that I've ever heard. But yeah, no, that like again, I was trying. I'm glad you did bring that up because like there's definitely gonna be somebody who's like, why didn't you talk about this part of it? I'm like, who? But like, who hasn't? Who hasn't talked about that part before? But like, I mean, you gotta at least glaze over it a little bit. But I was trying to get over into more like my this was me in court defending my love for Sanji, guys. I'm sorry, Saul Goodman here. Better call Saul, guys. I'm here to defend myself. Lock me up, guys. I'm with the horny dude. I like the horny guy. Everybody, I'm sorry.
Is it time? Is it time to hear the best fucking arc? This is okay. I know it's definitely not like the best arc, but I fucking love Arlong Park.
Yeah, bring us into peak, Chief.
Okay, so first things first. When we are first starting into Arlong Park, one thing that I really love that I'm pretty sure this never happened in the anime, that is like huge foreshadowing, is when I think it was Yasuka and Johnny or whatever their names were, the two bounty hunter bros. They said something about how some people call, or no, Luffy said Zeph had said this, that some people call the Grand Line paradise. Okay, buddy. Real big call to the future, let's be real. And I'm 90% sure that never happened in the anime. I also like that they introduced the idea of the 7 warlords here. You know, they start talking to them about how, like, oh, Mihawk was one of them. At least in the manga, the anime might introduce it sooner. I don't remember.
So the paradise thing, I think that does. I think he says Pirates Paradise in the anime, but I could be wrong about that because I remember he was talking to Luffy briefly about like, oh, I can give you some info on the Grand Line and give you my log, and Luffy's like, nah, bitch, get out the way.
In the manga, I just pulled it up. I found it. It says that's not what Chef Zeph told me. He said for some people the Grand Line is paradise. And then his iconic smile and giggle. So at least in the anime, that's what or in the manga, that's what we're looking at. Yeah, I like how they introduce the idea of the 7 warlords, and they also mention in the manga that in the Grand Line it's called the Pirates Graveyard because of the 3 great powers. But as soon as they start explaining the 7 warlords, Luffy's like, "Fuck this is boring," which is so on brand, so on character for him. And then obviously they try to like start explaining what the 7 warlords are, say Mihawk was one of them, and then start talking about Jinbei and how he was like the leader of the Fishman Pirates, which I'm sorry that I really want to talk about that. And like the whole Fishman Pirates and Fishman Island and Jinbei thing, but I know I can't. But I really like that they even bring it up this early into the show and into the manga. Then obviously there's Luffy's stupid little drawings, which I don't think anyone can gloss over of him trying to figure out what what a fishman looks like. But I like how they kind of talk about how, you know, there was something clearly wrong with Nami, and she was looking at the bounty poster for Arlong, so it's kind of obvious, you know, where she's going. And how like they kind of have an actual reason to go look for her there, and they don't just kind of be like, "Oh, let's go to an island." Which I find it very nice that they at least gave a reason, because I know some writers would have probably just been like, "Oh, they went to the next island and she was there." But then we see the interaction between a Marine and a pirate. And at this point, obviously, we don't quite know how awful Arlong is, but we still see the Marines cooperating with just some random pirate who isn't even one of the 7 warlords. So it shows more into like how the Navy isn't always the good guy. I like how you know, Arlong has this whole speech about money and yada yada, how he's like, "Ooh, money's never wronged me, Mr. Krabs." But then let's fast forward a little bit. Obviously there's the interactions between like Nami and like the kid, which I think is, you know, kind of important for later, but where, you know, the kid comes to try to kill Arlong and she beats the shit out of him and sends him back, which I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember if it was this brutal in the anime, but she fucking smacks him quite a few times, stomps on him, and then throws a stack of money at him. Which, let's be real, fucking, I wish that was in the anime. I really wish it was.
Base Nami?
It fucking just yeets money at the kid after beating the absolute dog shit out of him and stomping on his head.
I would pay her to do that to me. What the
That's what we call that's what we in the business call a bad bitch. Anyway, you know, obviously she goes back and talks to Arlong, and we see that she has a relationship with Arlong. And whereas she looked worried looking at the posters on the ship, all of a sudden she's all friendly. And he's talking about how betrayal is her specialty, which I think is kind of funny and a little ironic for the future, considering, you know, what happens. We see the tattoo, and that she is named as an officer in the Arlong pirate crew. We still have no clue why, what she did, who Arlong really is, you know. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I reread the beginning of Arlong Park while everyone else was talking, but that's about as far as I got. So from here on out, some of the details might be a little bit iffy. I might get them like in the wrong order and stuff. But now Zoro and I think Johnny is the one who's with Zoro. It was Zoro, Johnny, and Usopp. I forget the names, but one of the bounty hunters is with them, and they show up and they see the ship, and then I just think it's funny how they just fucking tie Zoro up and are like, "Yeah, you're a little bitch. You're gonna get us in trouble." Then obviously they get spotted, and this is where things start to go really south for the Straw Hats, and we notice like, maybe this isn't going to be just a peaceful mission of going back and getting Nami. Maybe this is going to be a little more difficult than we thought, as the fishmen go and capture Zoro, and Usopp and the little guy are forced to kind of go into a decimated village, from what I remember. I think that's the order of things. Where we meet Nami's sister, Nojiko, and I forget the name of the little kid, but the little kid. We have a really funny little gag about where they think Usopp is a fishman, and I personally think that's really funny. I don't know. I found that to be like one of the funniest parts of early One Piece to me, where they just look at this guy and he just, like, he's not that like weird looking. He just has a long nose, and they just see the long nose and immediately assume he's a fucking fishman. I just found that comical. He tries to pick a fight and gets his shit kicked in by Nojiko, and we get some backstory. You know, we kind of figure out what happened, that, you know, Arlong is the one who completely destroyed the entire village. And, you know, that's where we really start seeing, like, who Arlong is, and we start seeing, like, what type of awful person he is. You know, because before, you know, we can obviously guess, you know, he's a pirate, but We don't really know like what type of pirate because we've seen good pirates in Luffy and Usopp, and then we've seen the bad ones in Buggy and Kuro. So we get a lot more insight as to what type of pirate Arlong is. Then skipping pretty far ahead from there, that's kind of just the beginning. This is where I'm really gonna get dicey on the order, but I don't think it really matters as long as I talk about all the points that I want to. The whole thing where I really liked when they are actually telling I want to say it was it Zoro, Sanji, and Luffy, or was Usopp back with them again when Nojiko was giving Nami's backstory to them, and Luffy just fucks off and goes on a walk because that's just kind of his thing. He doesn't care why you're hurt. He just cares that you are and wants to help you.
I think. Oh, sorry. I think this is the part at this part of the story. This is like when after Usopp attacked Arlong, and he's kind of like on the run. I think that's where he's just kind of like out and about right now, like just somewhere on the fucking island. Where
Nami came in really clutch and stabbed herself to save his life, which we don't know that quite yet. Right after it happens, but when we find out, it kind of shows, maybe Nami's not all that bad. It's nice, that Usopp's not dead yet because he is, up to this point, I think one of the most enjoyable characters in the series. I know a lot of people really disagree with me there. I know a lot of people disagree. I think he's great comedic relief to just have there.
Too true.
I love his presence. Anyway, moving forward, Luffy walks off because, why does he care why Nami is so hurt? He just cares that she is, like I said, which is one of my favorite things about Luffy, is that he doesn't give a fuck what happened. He just cares that someone hurt his friend. Like that's, he's the type of guy who's like, I don't care. Let's just go fix the problem. I don't want to hear it. Let's just go do it. Like, let's go beat the shit out of that guy who beat the shit out of you. I don't care what happened. And I just love that from him. I love the goofy little guy and his propensity for just not giving a fuck. Truly no thoughts behind those eyes.
I wanted to add something really quick because when I was rereading through Romance Dawn, I picked up on this and wanted to throw this in because I knew that David was going to say something like that. But in Romance Dawn, when Shanks sees that Luffy was kidnapped, he says, "I don't care. No good reason or not, nobody hurts a friend of mine." So that's kind of like a big pinpoint on Luffy's philosophy. Yeah.
Which I think it's great how, we get that early on showing why he feels that way. I think it's really nice to show this is why he feels that way, because otherwise people might just be like, oh, he just kind of is stupid. But it's because his not even just mentor, but realistically father figure, this man who's been how important to him for basically as long as he can remember, has the same exact philosophy, and he kind of adopted it from there, which I think is wonderful. I think it really shows what type of character Luffy is. We get Nami's backstory, which is so fucking sad. And if you're watching One Piece for the first time, I know watching the episode of East Blue movie will be very, very tempting because it is short and it covers, I don't know, I want to say maybe, what is it, 50 episodes or some shit?
65.
It covers a lot of content. But if you think about it, if you put that much time, if you put that many episodes into one movie, it's 61 episodes for the East Blue Saga, I just checked. If you put that amount into one movie, you're going to be losing a lot. And they took out some of the most important parts of that arc. Rewatching it, it did not hit nearly the same. So I recommend just sitting down and watching through all of the episodes, because if you want to watch the episodes and then watch the movie afterwards, that's great, but you lose a lot of the sting out of this arc, which I think the emotional impact of this arc is why it's so great. I think this is the first true use that Oda has of being able to put so much emotional impact into a fairly short period of time. Because Arlong Park was not long by any means. It wasn't short. There's definitely much shorter arcs, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that long of an arc, and he put so much emotional impact in such a short period of time, and I think it's wonderful. But moving on, we see how Nami's mom, saves these two little babies as she was a Marine, saving these two adopted children. They're not actually sisters to each other. They're just two children she found. One was looking after the other because one was younger. And then, it moves her. This is a woman who was sitting there waiting to die. She wanted to die. And it moved her to take these kids back to her village and become their parent. This ruffian, even. Like, everyone in the village was like, the fuck, Belmare? What are you doing? You're barely not a kid yourself. You're such a fucking lunatic. Like, you can't take care of kids, but she took care of them, and for what is worth, she did as well as she could, I know there was the little bit about not having money and wishing she was born into a richer family from Nami and getting smacked and running away. But, Belmare did what she could. I mean, she wasn't eating so that the two could eat. Then, while Nami's away, the pirates show up. And the arc suddenly takes a really dark shift as they just come through and start marauding and just fucking claiming everything. Like, they just show up and immediately take over. Like, there wasn't any, waiting, nothing. It just immediately gets taken over by Arlong and his men. And then that's when, they think they've collected all their money from everyone because they came in and started collecting money for being allowed to live. And then they see, I think it was Hachi, sees the smoke from outside the village. And that's when they go out and check. And they tried really hard to save Belmare from her impending doom. But in the end, she just refused to disown her daughters and say that they weren't hers or that she didn't have them, and traded her life for them. In one of the saddest moments that I had ever seen in anime at the time that I watched it, because I watched it first, not read it. But at that point, I think that was the saddest thing I'd ever seen in anime. And that was, I think, the first time anime moved me to tears. And it wasn't like, I wasn't like bawling, but it had a tear in my eye. And that was the first time that happened from an anime. But it only got worse as the arc progressed. Then we see that Nami joined the Arlong Pirates in exchange for being able to buy freedom for the villagers. Then we are truly shown what type of person Arlong is after seeing how ruthless he was for killing people when she was almost there. She almost had enough money, and he tipped off the Marines, and they took all the money, and she had to start from square one. And obviously she came back telling everyone, like, no, it's fine, it's fine. I'll just work again, I'll work hard. But they were tired. They just wanted to go fight. They waited hoping that it would work, but knowing it probably wouldn't. And they were just tired of it. They saw Nami get hurt one too many times, and everyone was up in arms. Even Nojiko, who got shot in the tangerine orchard. And so they all show up, and then guarded by the two bounty hunters who had absolutely gotten their shit kicked in and were beaten half to death. They said, bro, you guys can't come in. We're waiting on some specific men, and if they can't do it, no one can. Then we go back to Nami crying, and then as she just starts screaming Arlong, stabbing herself in the shoulder, right in the tattoo, repeatedly over and over again, and just crying. Luffy grabs her hand, tells her to stop, and after her telling him to go away and then a moment of silence, she asks him to help, to which he replies, of course, and throws down his hat onto her head, which this hat that he was so protective of for the entire series, it's never left him, at least not for any period of time. This is what caused him to go absolutely berserk on Buggy when he hurt the hat, and he places it down on this person who was just yelling at him, telling him to go away. And we get one of the greatest moments in all of fiction. I don't care what anyone says, in the walk to Arlong Park. In the anime, it pans back, and in the manga, it shows a panel of everyone kind of standing there, and then they start walking. They start walking up to the doors in the most menacing walk with one of the greatest soundtracks in anime, because goddamn, it's simple, but it fucking works. Dun, 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 dun. It's perfect. It accomplishes exactly what you need. Anytime I hear that soundtrack, I know someone's gonna get fucked up. And then, you know, a battle ensues, and Luffy gets stuck in the ground like a dumbass because he wanted to try a pinwheel maneuver because he saw a pinwheel on the old guy's head, which is one of the most Luffy things that I've ever fucking seen. And you know, I don't want to go too much into each of the fights. Maybe just give some highlights, like with Zoro fighting Hachi with his six sword style, talking about how the weight of their swords are different, and Hachi clearly not understanding what he means by that. But he gets shown, you know, it was the sword of a man who said that he was never going to lose again, compared to the swords of just some guy. And he learned the difference very quickly. Sanji, kind of calling back to his youth, ended up fighting in the water. I think it was a great little callback that, you know, he was in the water almost dying and got saved, and then Luffy was in the water about to die and got saved by Sanji. And I think that was a great little callback to kind of like a parallel, I guess, which Oda loves to do. And I think the highlight of that fight to me was more or less just that parallel. I mean, it was a great fight. I loved it. Then I'm not gonna lie, Usopp's fight here was funny, but I think that's the end of it, at least for me. I mean, there was the great moment where he kind of manned up and, you know, did what he had to do. But other than that, I think the comedy aspect was kind of the only real standout point to me for that.
Rubber Band of Doom!
Kind of claps everyone, and as he's holding up Zoro, he rips the bandages off his chest and is fucking horrified that this man is still alive. He's like, what the fuck, dude? And I think it was a great show of Zoro's strength and durability, and the fact that this man was so nerfed by this injury that should have killed like anyone and still was winning all these fights. I think it's a great show of how strong he truly is. And then obviously we get Luffy escaping from in the water. And you know, a great fight, classic Luffy style, stretching and punching, Arlong trying to use the water to his advantage, but he makes one fatal flaw when him and Luffy end up in Nami's room. And when Luffy picks up that fucking blood-stained pen and hears Arlong talking about how he uses her and then uses the term friend for her, loses his fucking shit and delivers one of the most satisfying ends to a fight I have ever seen. When he stops Arlong's sword by just grabbing it. When he throws his foot up through the roof high into the sky and just brings it straight down on his face. And in that moment, you know, there's no way Arlong is getting back up from that fucking stomp. You know, it's just beautiful. You know, just the way he flips as soon as, like Liam was saying earlier, with like the context of his crew, his friends, his family, the way he flips upon seeing someone misuse the term friend, at least in his opinion, misusing the term, the way he flips is just great, and another testament, I think, to how strong his character is and his convictions as a character. And then, you know, obviously there's a little wrap up. They end up taking Nami. We get a little more, like, a little party going. The classic One Piece stuff. And then a little bit of, we get Luffy's first bounty. 30 million. Goddamn. That's a really high fucking bounty to start with. But I think that's about all I really wanted to talk about for this arc. If there was a tier above S+, I would put it there. I think this arc is absolutely perfect, and there's not a single thing I would change. Anyone else?
Oh yeah, go to tier, baby.
Fact. Bro, I'm not gonna lie, I've been slugging water this entire time. I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. You guys talk about this.
Are you alright if I talk about this, Liam?
Go, bro, go away, all you.
Dude, Arlong Park is literally like I'm sorry, but Arlong Park is definitely my favorite arc in the whole series. Like, I remember you telling me, like, a while, at least I think it was you, you're like, oh yeah, dude, chapter 1000, bro, it's, like, even better than the walk to Arlong Park. No, dude, walk to Arlong Park was still better, in my opinion, even after seeing that. Because that was good, chapter 1000 was good, but this was just, I don't think you can top the walk to Arlong Park. I genuinely don't think you can unless unless there's, like, a whole crew walk to something like that's what's gonna peak. That is what would pass Arlong Park for me. But like the reason why I love this arc so much is just like everyone gets a fucking chance to fight, which you don't get later down the line in like the series, unfortunately. Like I think it's awesome how everyone gets a fight. I mean, except for Nami, but like the main people who are actually part of the crew at this point, like they all get a fight. I don't know, it's just such a good arc. I think it's really funny at points, like at the beginning where fucking, like how he said, like, Usopp and the other dude just, like, dip and just leave fucking Zoro in there. Like, I think this arc has literally everything. It has comedy, it has sadness, it has fucking peaks of greatness. Like, it's just such a good arc. And, like, there's just so many amazing things in this arc. Like, you get the first bounty for Luffy. You get these fights, like, for everyone, which, by the way, guys, the Usopp fight, bro, fucking chef's kiss, get the fucking Usopp hammer, the Usopp rubber band of doom, like, bro, dude, such a good fight,
Go.
And, like, I mean, obviously the other fights are amazing, too, I'm not saying it like they aren't, because they are also really good fights, and, like, the way fucking Zoro fucks up, what is his name? I literally know his name because, what is it?
Hachi.
Yeah, the way he fucks up Hachi, bro. Oh my goodness, I remember that shit. I'm like, damn, that's brutal, and I know for a fact that shit was probably even more brutal in the manga because how the anime censors it. But like, yeah, dude, I fucking love Arlong Park. There's just
I love the portion where like Hachi doesn't know who Zoro is yet, and Zoro's like, "Hey yo, let me get a lift."
Oh, dude, yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah, that part is amazing. Just Usopp, like, obviously you know he's not gonna die, but like the way that he gets fucking thrown off the like dock and just into the water, that was a good part. You get the fucking Luffy pinwheel attack. That part was pretty funny just because of the hat. There's just so many great parts about this arc. And then obviously you get Nami, like, officially joining. And the one thing that I wanted to point out that David didn't point out is with, when they're walking to, like, Arlong Park, the fucking talk with, like, Johnny and, I'm gonna say Yosuke, I don't think that's his name.
Yosaku or something.
Yosaku, yeah.
Dude, the way that they're like, the faces of these men, like, burn them into your mind. Like, they're gonna be, like, insane in the future or something like that. Like, dude, it's such a... that's what probably one of my favorite parts of that, like, walk is. Just the way that they say how they're, like, yeah, burn their faces into your mind. Like, it's... I don't know. It just makes it even better. Like...
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's very much I think that might actually be... both come to my head when I think of like how good of moments are when it comes to both that and the stars are about to take center stage. Those are both like just fucking great speeches.
Wait, what's the stars about to take center stage?
Marco.
Oh, okay.
And Onigashima.
Yeah.
Wow, when he says that about the two silly little dudes about to do silly little things. Yeah, those two both live like both those phrases live rent free in my head. They are fucking great.
Yeah.
I would say that my favorite, like besides like the whole like Nami, that is probably the first time that One Piece made me cry was during Nami's backstory and that whole thing. Like I just felt a lot of like personal connection to Sanji's and stuff like that, but Nami's was fucking horrifying to watch. And the other thing about Arlong Park 2, and what I think is the best part about it, is the arc gets better when you get more into the series.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to explain why, but the arc gets even fucking better the more you know about the One Piece world. And I see we're getting a little close to 2 hours in.
Yeah.
And, maybe if I didn't have to be up at like 4 a.m., I'd be like, let's fucking grind out anyway and just grind out Logtown. But maybe, I don't know, could be a good little break off. But the only thing that I'm worried about though is like Alabasta is going to be a lot to cover.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Logtown will probably take all of like 10 minutes though. So
that's true, yeah.
That could be just a quick little like start, like an intro before Alabasta.
Yeah, true. We can figure out how dissecting this all later will work. I will also bark every time someone says Nico Robin during the next live stream. Robin.
All right, so are we wrapping it up here then?
Yeah, we'll wrap it up then. All right, well, since this is my YouTube channel that this is going on, default get the stop recording button ready. To everybody who is watching, thank you so much. Again, I cannot tell you how much it means more to me for you, if you're watching this, to please go support Oda. He is a fucking phenomenal writer, and he deserves nothing but the best support from his fan base. He is so close to bringing us the end of what might be, and what probably is, the greatest piece of fiction in history. One of the best-selling by far, and will probably be the best-selling comic book name / manga name in no time at all. Just a phenomenal series by a phenomenal human being, who I know we are all grateful for. So please go give your support to the absolute GOAT Oda. If you're done watching this, if you haven't seen it, why the fuck are you here? Go read it, read it, watch it. I don't care. Don't watch episode of East Blue. Cringe Nene, baby. Don't piss around it. Just watch it. Little nerd. Little fucking bozo. But anyway, I'm done insulting you. Thank you for tuning in. This was the Checkerboard Pirates. We will be back whenever the fuck we choose to be. And, yeah, peace out, YouTube.
See you guys.
Bye.